Hello, my friends. Welcome back to lesson 3 of the week of emotions and integrate our challenge. And today's class, you'll really see, I want to bring it together. I really want to show you guys in today's class how you actually work with your emotions, the language of emotions, how to process your emotions, and do this in a way that you can really start doing this work at home within yourself. Oftentimes we hear people saying you need to feel your feelings, or you need to allow all of your emotions, or you have to be able to process your emotions. But until you really work with a somatic healer or a therapist or a coach, even different types of healing modalities, there's so many out there that get you into your body and into your energetic body. So when I talk about processing emotions, as you'll see, this is really nice meditative work that you can do within yourself at home by yourself. This is what I really want to give you the groundwork for. But there are so many modalities to explore emotional work and going within. So don't let this be your one-stop shop here. Let this open the door, and then look into other practices. Joe Dispenza meditations, look into yoga, look into ecstatic dancing, look into getting into your body. And that's where we really feel all of our emotions, right? So with no further ado, I'll go ahead and share my screen and start the presentation for today's class. And any questions you may have about other modalities, bring them to our group coaching on Sunday. And we can definitely explore, because I love so many of those arenas. All right. All right, processing emotions, an introduction to somatic healing that you can start today. Basically, this is going to be kind of a do it yourself at home guide to emotions for today. So in previous classes this week's, I did say that I like to look at our emotions as our INS, right? Our internal navigation system. So just like a GPS that'll continuously reroute you to get you to your destination in case there's a roadblock or in case there's traffic on the way. Or a GPS that will just continue to say, yep, you made the right turn. I mean, it doesn't say that, but it just continues to say, next turn is there, next turn is there, right? Like, so those two versions would be positive and negative emotions. When you have a final destination, a goal, a life purpose, a vision, and something that you're trying to navigate and get to, your emotions are either saying, hold on, you're on the right track, go on there, keep going that way, yes. Or they're saying, wait, stop, hold on, you got a detour, reroute, right? But it's always to the final destination. And in this class, we're going to see that our emotions are really tied to the story of what we need, the true story, the intimate story, the story that we often don't tell ourselves. And that's a place where a lot of negative emotions come from. When we don't meet the true needs of our own story, the full story, all of life's existence, then we end up having to reroute and try to figure things out. And that's when we experience negative emotions. And as Abraham Hicks teaches, it's in those moments of those negative experiences that we sometimes find great treasures, right? What if we never veered off that way? What would we have not seen? That's where life's expansion happens. And that's where we find some of our greatest strength as well. So none are good or bad. It's just the way that we experience life. And we have to be really aware and in tune with our emotions if we really want to live a life of passion, a life of joy, a life of fulfillment. That's all emotional, right? So in the scientific community right now, I don't want to say that this is highly proven yet. It's still such a topic that's up for debate, but there is a concept of emotional lateralization, and this happens in the split between the right and left hemisphere of the brain. So this I pulled from Wikipedia for emotional lateralization. I should have quoted in there, but I'm doing it here. But basically, it's the study of what the right brain and the left brain are responsible for when it comes to our emotions. Which emotions does each side of the brain process? Why? So Real quick, just to give you a little overview, the right hemisphere has more control over emotion than the left hemisphere. The right hemisphere of our brain is dominant in emotional expression in a similar way that the left hemisphere is dominant in language. So the right hemisphere is dominant in the perception of facial expressions, body posture, and prosody. The right hemisphere is important for processing primary emotions such as fear, while the left hemisphere is more important for processing social emotions. So, both sides of the brain do process emotions. They're both very important in processing emotions. But what I want you to take out of this is that the right hemisphere um, is emotional expression, right? If you think about facial expressions, body posture, prosody, that's all in the intangibles, like the language of the person that's more symbolic and how they carry themselves, but it's not about the words that they speak. The left brain is much more calculated. It's much more of the to-do list and the analyzations and just the analytical circular thinking. Whereas the right brain can be very symbolic and very conceptual, very theoretical. And it's interesting that the right hemisphere process primary emotions such as fear, while the left hemisphere is important for processing social emotions like joy or communication or gratitude when you're in a group setting, or fulfillment because you've achieved something. And so the primary emotions is also where we place, as you'll see, most of our trauma, most of the hurtful emotions that we suppress and tuck away from childhood experiences all the way. There's research that says we can experience emotional trauma even before we're born in the womb, to just something happens to us yesterday and someone cuts us off on the road and was really mean to us and it was very hurtful. That goes kind of right through our right hemisphere brain, and that part of our brain thinks more in symbols and thinks more in the intangibles, the expression, right? Body posture, facial communication, in the mirror neuron technology, which is kind of recognizing something in another individual and then you mirroring that emotion. So empathy is driven by the right brain so much more so. And what happens is, with our primary emotions, they start speaking to us in ways we really cannot logically understand and put together. Primary emotions, like, you know, you, I, like a gut wrenching cry or fear. Sometimes we don't even have words to calculate it all. They come in feelings, they come in imagery, and they speak in the language of sensations in our body, right? From earlier, we remember how we defined emotions as vibrations in our body, actual sensations that we feel throughout our body. And oftentimes, because we don't have a way to connect to those primary emotions and to describe them and process them, we become very afraid of them, right? Remember from why we do the things we do. Most people will avoid things that they're afraid of, that they think will cause them pain. So we think it's going to be really painful for us to actually go into the feeling of, extreme fear or isolation or feeling apart from the pack, or if someone was really mean and rude to us and angry at us and we got really deflated, we are scared to sit with that feeling of deflation. Or if there's a horrible breakup, and you were together for a long time, okay, horrible is just the thought. But if you had a really serious breakup with someone you were together and really loved and truly cared for and had to part ways with, there's going to be that feeling of a while that you have to mourn, right? There's going to be a period where you're grieving. And so many times people try to resist or push away grief because it's such a painful emotion. And these emotions are so primary, they're often tucked away in our bodies and they don't really have words or language. And because they overwhelm us, and because we haven't really been taught how to communicate or how to process these words, what happens is, or these things in words, what happens is we just store them away in different energy centers in different parts of our body. And according to a lot of traditions, acupuncture, for example, a lot of Chinese traditions, Chinese medicine, and even like we learned about the Kabbalah, right? Last lesson, and the energy centers within the body are all related to parts of our emotions as well. And so if you, for example, experience anger often and are constantly and consistently angry, then that is, according to some traditions, stored in the same organs in the body over and over and over. And that's why some people are more apt possibly to have that organ fail, or certain chronological diseases, right? Like heart disease is related with stress so often in our lives, and that's kind of more of a documented fact. So I'm not a researcher. I don't want to make correlations here. I just want to kind of give an overview of different traditions and how many traditions have within their practice associated different emotional states with similar regions in the body over a consistent period of time and over a consistent amount of subjects studied, that one emotion causes the failure in the same region in the body over and over and over. So just to get your mind open and to thinking, since we experience emotions in our body, and since those emotions are oftentimes connected to trauma or hurtful experiences, isn't it very plausible that we also store that emotion in our body in certain ways? And so the way to release an emotion that's stored in the body would be through the body. And this is where I suggest going within the body in all ways. For some people, sitting in meditation is really uncomfortable. So maybe a walking meditation is better. I highly recommend yoga. I highly recommend going to, I went to an ecstatic dance thing. I've never done anything like this before, but it was really cool. It was COVID safe and it was all in a field. And there was like 50 people and really beautiful music, and everybody was social distancing. And I am just in a place where I really wanted to release and dance, and I didn't want to hold back or feel ashamed. And I allowed myself, and I had one of the most blissful moments. Like, I was in meditation, my heart opened up, I had so much compassion, I stood in prayer, I cried. And some of the visualizations and downloads that I had in that moment, like, were things for my life, for my business, for my career, for myself, for my inner image, my inner self-worth, were astounding. And they came through symbols. So the symbol that came to me, actually, and maybe this will help with the next part of the class, is as I danced and as I felt and as I expressed my emotion, I just closed my eyes and tuned in. The first thing that my brain showed me was a symbol. It wasn't words. And the feeling that I was having was like there was a baby, like I was a baby, like a small child, and there was a snake wrapped all around it, almost as if the snake had been clenching the child. And I just felt like as if like the child was like, oh, it doesn't have to be this way. I'm more powerful than the snake. And throughout the dancing and the movement, the visualization that kept coming to me was that I was getting freer and freer from the snake. And by the end of it, the snake was like my staff. And I could just play with it and do what I wanted with it. And the snake was like listening to me, like it was still there, but it was listening to me. And the story that told me in that place was how much I've come into myself, and how much right I'm not going to be, even though dancing in a field with a lot of strangers is something I'd like to do, but not something I often did or have ever done really in the past like that, unless it was a music festival like years and years ago. And it just felt so nice. And it was like, it's okay if you feel anxious. It's okay if you maybe feel uncomfortable at first. But the fact that I'm just noticing that emotion and still moving through and choosing to do what I want to do was like that release, right? And it was such a beautiful affirmation once I was able to put it into language again. But at first, it was just symbols and imagery. And that was in my body. And it came up as I allowed my body to express and kind of guide me there through dance, through movement. So it doesn't just have to be meditation, but usually this experience is more of a meditative experience. So, mind and body integration, allowing your emotions to guide you through the language of the soul. That was kind of my story. I probably could have just told it on this slide, but we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. So, I want you to first and foremost, before we go into actually how to process your emotions, we have to understand why emotions get stored in different areas of our body and how unprocessing emotions actually work. So I'm going to try to explain this concept, even though it's not. It's um, where I can still learn myself and grow myself, and something I'm still trying to understand. But basically, if you can imagine yourself as a baby, as a small child, the way that we see a child, right, is just worthy without having to accomplish anything, without having done anything. Actually, a baby is extraordinarily needy when it comes into this world, and yet it is just so whole and worthy, and everything about it makes others around it just say, oh my gosh, it's so cute, and I'm melting, and and it's just such a beautiful feeling to be around the baby, because that baby is emanating emotional wholeness. Like, it knows nothing of the world to be scary yet, or maybe if it does, it's still not able to really take that and circulate it and make it a big problem, right? And so as the child grows up, the child feels whole. The child feels loved. The child feels supported, especially if a child is getting a lot of love and support from family members and from different people, and really nice environment in the home. And then at a certain point in time, like when a child becomes 1.5, 2 years old and starts trying to reach for things and walking around, for the first time, it starts hearing the word no. And this portion of wholeness, depending on how severe that no is, so this is going to happen to absolutely everyone all the time. And it doesn't have to be a child, this happens to us every single day. But depending on how severe that no is, what happens is the child starts to have two ideas about themselves. One is, wait, I'm whole and everyone loves me, and I've been this cute little baby this whole time, and everybody's been doing everything for me. And the other idea is, wait, I can't do this. And this is emotional fragmentation. It creates a split where you're having two emotions at once, right? And it's very hard for us to, the way I like to relate it is like, imagine like two tug of war teams, or sometimes three or four or five, having like a serious tug of war match. And they're all like super strong CrossFit players, and they're playing with your thoughts and your feelings, and that's the ropes of the tug of war match, right? Sometimes that's how we feel. And so let's say we do something great at a project and a presentation at work, and we absolutely love it and we're excited about it, and then we feel that way about our project, and then we go show it to our boss and he totally shuts it down. Bam, fragmentation, right? And that's good. Wait, I had a beautiful project that feels great, and then someone totally shut it down, feels awful. Holy moly, what do I do with that? Let's say that you're, inviting someone out on a date and they say no. Once again, you thought the date, the safety, the pleasure, the experience of it created one emotional feeling sensation in your body, and then they didn't want to go with you. Bam, shut it down, right? Fragmentation. What feels really, really good is when we're able to embrace and bring emotions together. When things fuse, when they work, when things fragment, it usually creates contrast. But things are bound to, it's just the way the world is. Like, life is 50-50. Half of it is bringing stuff together, half of it is fragmentation. So even as we integrate and grow, we start to see new layers of this process. So this process is going to happen all of the time. I haven't met somebody that totally ran away from it. What I noticed is that it's almost like, I don't know who's old school enough to remember when there used to be pop-up windows on your computer, and like it would this was like dial-up internet days, but do you remember you'd be like trying to write an email and then it would be like pop-up window here and pop-up window there and and then if you got a virus or something, it'd be like a million of them, right? So that's how I see like emotional fragmentation on overwhelm. It's like 5 million pop-up windows, one right after the other, and you can't ever write your email. But if it's just like one here, you can exit it out, and another one there, you can exit it out. And eventually there's enough time, you put your email away and you start working on the back end and cleaning up the computer, because there's only one pop-up window at the time, right? So it's kind of like lowering your distractions or that fragmentation process until you have a really great balance where you can fragment and integrate, fragment, integrate, fragment, integrate. And that's like personal growth heaven. Like when you're always reaching for something, have contrast, able to get yourself there. Always reaching for something, have contrast, have a desire, get yourself there. So, how do we do this, right? Y'all, remember class 1, loving awareness. Curiosity is kind, right? So, in this process, we have to create a safe space for our inner child. We can't go into this process and be judgmental of ourselves and say, how could you, and you're never going to figure this out, and you're unworthy of love, and look at all the harm and pain you've gone through. That is emotional sabotage, y'all, and it's never going to serve you in this process, and what it will do is make it worse. So at first, I would really love to do this together. And this is actually what we're going to do in group coaching on Sunday. And the most important part of this process, like seriously, 100%, is to create a very safe space for yourself. So, what I like to do when I'm processing emotions, sometimes it's like a dance, like I was telling you, where I just feel safe and comfortable within myself. Sometimes it's really heavy stuff, y'all. This is not a quick journey, especially if you're dealing with grief or death or, severe trauma. There's some, pardon my French, but there's a lot of shit that can come up that's really hard. And I know this. I've been there. I've dealt with such crazy depression. And I have like a serious story of victimhood too that I'm definitely working through in this process. But there's always layers, right? And when I do this work, I like to really make sure that I sit down. I like have my dog or blankets. I make candles. I make candles. I like candles. I have maybe nice music playing. Like I create a really safe, loving, compassionate zone for myself. And I tell myself I'm about to go places and do hard things. And that's okay. I can do this. I love myself enough. And we're going to get there, and we're going to do this for us, and you've got this, Yana. And I just hold myself and like almost treat yourself like your inner child. There's no blame, there's no judgment, just integration, allowing, loving, compassion. So when you get into your safe space, this could be on a walk. This could be in a dance. This could be during a yoga class. This could be in your meditation practice. By the way, I started really doing this work in my yoga class. Like when the teacher said set an intention, I would often set an intention for emotion I wanted to process or work through or see, or clarity on a thing I'd been spiraling in my left brain thinking about. And I would just set an intention to have clarity on that issue through my body and the movement. And these are the way to integrate your left and right brain and bring them together. So you are using language, but you're allowing it to speak kind of through the symbolism and the right brain emotional self. Where in my body is this sensation? Sometimes anger feels like puffed up chest. Sometimes if you're having a hard time communicating, I feel it a lot constricting in my throat. Butterflies in the belly, right? When we're falling in love or getting excited about something new happening. Where is the sensation in my body? What am I feeling? Like, is it hot? Is it cold? Is it open? Is it closed? Is it tense? Is it warm and fuzzy? Is it spacious? Is it condensed? There's a lot of different ways to describe your feelings. We just never ever do it. No one's ever taught us to do it. So when you're sitting in this space, oftentimes, even like with a really sad, I actually recommend practicing this with like something really that's exciting or happy and just seeing how this works in a positive way. But when you're processing negative emotions, the idea to ask yourself is, what am I feeling? And then instead of being like, oh, grief, it hurts so bad, I can't do it, be like, what does grief feel like in my body? Where is the grief? Is it near my heart? Is it near my stomach? Is it near my shoulders? How does grief feel? Does it feel like really heavy and really mucky and feels like a swamp, right? Describe the symbols. Pardon me, y'all. Are there any symbols? And oftentimes symbols will come up for me. It feels like a swamp and it's dark and it's murky, and as I say that, it's like I'm seeing the symbol, but of a lotus flower shining through. So sometimes our brains will always say, like, no, there's something to hold on to in that, right? Describe the symbols, describes the feelings, right? We went hot and cold in between. And what's really beautiful about emotions and feelings and sensations is that they always move. Like there's 100% always movement. I can't think of one day that my emotional state has been 100% the same every moment throughout the whole day. Even something like hunger is a feeling that comes on, and as it's satisfied, it moves, right? So our emotions are meant to move, they're meant to shift. And what happens is when we naturally do this, when we allow them to speak through your body, describe what you're feeling, describe what you're seeing, what happens is that there is a natural shift. So sometimes emotion that starts in your heart will move down to your stomach and reveal a whole new level of symbols. Sometimes it'll go to your toes and into the ground and come back through. There's always movement, and noticing that sensation and where is it traveling in your body, and then asking yourself again, what am I feeling? Describing the symbols there, describing the colors. Is it hot? Is it cold? This process will allow you to see that any emotion really is manageable. As hard as it is, it's a sensation that's going on in your body that moves, that transforms. And just seeing that gives us hope again, right? Even in the hardest of moments, like, wow, there's movement. So this too shall pass, possibly a long time from now, but there is that potential there. And that in itself is a really beautiful opening. Just that exercise alone, noticing your emotional movement, gives it so much freedom in allowance, which is allowing all the feelings, right? The perception of bodily changes. When we can master this, like allowing all the changes, when we fragment, there's a perception of bodily change. If we can allow every fragmentation to be our teacher, to get us to a deeper place and release it on the spot, we would continue to elevate ourselves every single day exactly where we wanted to go and get there all the time. It's when we resist this allowing that we slow ourselves down, that we don't listen to our internal navigation system, that we only see the detour, not the final destination, and decide to stop and get a rest and get a hotel for the night because we've overwhelmed ourselves because we've done so much fragmentation, not enough integration. Allowing all the feelings, all the perceptions of bodily changes throughout our bodies all the time. Master that, you have mastered life 100%. There's nothing you'll ever be afraid to take on because you know that you can handle failure. There's no one that you'll ever be afraid to ask out on a date because you know that you can feel humiliated and still survive and be okay, and that it's normal, and that even humiliation is your teacher. There's no one that you won't be authentic to because you're not afraid of rejection. And so ultimately, you'll always find yourself over and over and over. And that really, like, whether you're a millionaire or not, whether you have the most successful family or not, whether you accomplish anything in this world or not, if you can come back home to yourself and be satisfied with you and know how to be satisfied with all of you, man, that's gold. So, questions to ask yourself during this process. Again, we're involving the left brain here. We're letting it work with us. And we are wanting the emotional body and the logical body to connect, mind heart coherence. We have to integrate the whole system. But instead of analyzing, like, oh my gosh, he did this, and therefore it made me feel like that, and he's such a jerk, and judgment and blame, right? We're going to say, what is this emotion trying to tell me? Is there a deeper need I can meet for myself? And by the way, as we're asking these questions, we're also going back into our bodies. What is this emotion trying to tell me? Where do I feel that question in my body? How does it feel? Right? Is there a symbol? Is there an image? Is there a deeper need I can meet for myself here? Is this emotion in a certain part of my body? Is this emotion ready to be released and healed? I want you to play with your intuition here. Sometimes it's okay to be patient. And again, the process of allowing all emotions, maybe the emotion isn't ready to be released and healed fully, and therefore it's still your teacher. And you can still get more out of it. And there's still more umph in there to tap into and to learn from. And it's the most how do you make it the most beautiful detour you've went on thus far in your trip, right? If it's not ready to be released yet. And that knowing is so beautiful, which can lead you to the next question is, what can I do to allow this emotion to process? And being in tune with it, right? And what this does, this process of going into your body, doing this kind of somatic work, speaking to your emotions, allowing them to answer in symbols and being open to any symbols that come up and feeling any associated feelings and bodily perceptions with those symbols. What happens is integration, true integration. And integration is the process of allowing all of your emotions and choosing to keep the ones that serve you while letting go of the ones that teach you, right? All emotions are here for us. They're all here to have a purpose and to guide us on our way to our final destination. It's just knowing how long do we want to linger with each one. And the quicker that we can choose to linger with the ones that serve us, and the faster that we can learn from the ones that are there to reroute us, get us back on the path, the quicker we'll get to destination after destination after destination. So I want to end this class today by giving a quote from Hans Hofmann, who is an artist. And I couldn't pick, like, he had so many that I loved, but I picked two. The ability to simplify means to eliminate the unnecessary so that the necessary may speak. And the whole world, as we experience it visually, comes to us through the mystic realm of color. I want you to consider yourself as an emotional piece of artwork. And yes, what you present of yourselves physically on the surface is kind of the shell of that artwork. But it's the artist that's inside that's behind it. That's really the I am. That's so much more deeper than what your hair looks like, or your makeup, or your nails, or what clothes we wear, or what rooms we sit in. I want you to imagine yourself having that complete liberty and freedom to yourself, to honor yourself, to hone into yourself, to do hard things like sit with hard emotions because you know how to process them, because you know how to be with them. Where would that take you? What could that bring to you and benefit when it comes to your relationships if you were able to process the hard stuff before bringing it to a partner? What would that bring to your business if you were able to make split second hard decisions that took emotional mastery? How much would you benefit if you integrated just a little bit of this process, maybe for 5 minutes a day in the morning, and just said, what am I feeling today? What's the number one emotion that's coming up for me? Where is it in my body? How does it feel? Is this emotion here to teach me anything? Colors, symbols, sensations? For just 5 minutes, if we tuned into the stories of our bodies a day, we could learn so much more about the wholeness of us. not just the analytical, go, 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 gotta succeed, but the full human, right? And how can we meet all of our needs? And so this process to me has been the number one integrative process that I use when I'm going through a hard time, when I'm experiencing negative emotions. This is how I do it, whether it's with my coach or with myself, or, sometimes I've even seen Reiki healers and gone to do this work with other somatic healers, tapping, cognitive behavioral therapy. Again, there's so many venues for this work, but I highly recommend starting to look within and just noticing, how often do you even notice your emotions? Can you name your emotions? Where are they in your body? And what benefit would tuning in with your emotional body give you in the long run? All right. I love y'all. I'm going to sign off for now, and I'll see you at group coaching on Sunday, where we're actually going to do this work. So you have a live presentation, live view, see how it is. We'll jump on stage. I mean, we've done this in a lot of our one-on-one coaching so far, but we're going to have a lot of fun on Sunday. We're going to play with a lot of fun, positive emotions. And if you want to process some hard stuff, that'll be available to you too on Sunday. Okay. I love you, ladies. Have a great day. Bye.